welcome to the Game Dev Local Podcast. I'm your host, Oscar Clark, he, him, and I am on a podquest. Learn everything you wanted to know about game dev, but never dared to ask. And today, I am delighted to be joined by Jordan and Dansky from Team Folon. Guys, do you want to tell us all a little bit about yourselves and what you do?
All right, so I am Dansky, or Daniel Morrison Neil. So I'm the Chief Admin Officer for Team Folon, and I was also the lead composer and sound effects kind of person for Fallout London.
We're going to have to come back to what Chief Admin Officer is, because I think that's fascinating. I have stories about that. Similar naming conventions I've used in the past. Jordan, tell us a bit about yourself first, though.
Yes, hello, I'm Sonny, or Jordan Alban. I am the Chief Technologies Officer at Team Folon. And at the time, when I was working for Fallout London, I was the lead 3D artist and build master.
Buildmaster. That sounds so grand, and we know how much. Basically, it means you're the one who's slogging, trying to work out why the darn thing won't build properly, and then getting complained at when there's a problem. What can I say? But Chief Admin Officer, the sexiest title I've heard today. Maybe not.
Definitely not.
We used to use, so my business partner, she's a fantastic producer. So we used to use the term chief list maker. But I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean, it's something I can't do.
Yeah.
It's something that really matters. So how did you end up being Chief Admin Officer?
It kind of came about due to, because I have an interest in helping facilitate meetings and such. So, I mean, currently as like a day job as well, I work at the School of Innovation and Technology, and a lot of that is like creative facilitation and such. So the closest kind of title which still holds somewhat relevance was Chief Admin Officer. A lot of that is spreadsheet, a lot of that is marking things within meetings, as well as, you know, doing stuff with the books and everything. So a lot of that happens a little bit behind the scenes. I'm more somebody who, if meetings come up, I'll be somebody that says, how about we do a meeting in this kind of way? Is quite a lot of what it is that I'm doing for things.
I like this idea of like creative facilitation. I think that's a really fascinating way of looking at it. I must admit, I don't do enough of it, but I like the concept. So let's take a bit of journey back in time. Obviously, we'll probably spilt the beans on the main headline here. But what got you into the scene? I mean, particularly the mod making scene. Do you have a history of kind of like game development that predates this process? Tell us a little bit about that.
I'm more than happy to start here. So I started modding back for New Vegas, Fallout 3, a long time ago. It kind of started in, for those in the UK, sixth form level. I started just modding games, figuring out how they work, poking away at them. And a lot of it's
and there's
reverse
a fine
engineering.
tradition of this, isn't there? Particularly because if you go back to the Counter Strikes of this world, if you go down, I suppose arguably the Portal started out in a modding. Well, is it modding or an indie kind of way? Anyway, the point is that it's a massive amount of people cut their teeth by doing that process.
Yeah, 100%. It's shocking how many games, like humongous, especially on the Valve side of their whole ecosystem, the amount of games that started off as mods.
Yeah.
And you're like, wait a minute, that's like the most played game in the world. Like, it's a shocker. So for me, that started out with just, I think.
And you were doing the whole thing, presumably, at that point. You were trying to code things, you were trying to create art, you were trying to kind of do stuff, you reuse.
For me, it was forensic science. I was doing a forensic science course. Yeah. And then. It just, in my free time, I started modding, and
so
lo and behold.
I mean, I don't want to presume I know anything about forensic science, but in my head, I'm thinking, cold case. I'm thinking, looking at the emergence of worms or beetles from corpses, that kind of thing. Am I completely off track there?
That is part of it, but it was more the forensics of science. So it's it could be anything. It could be how does a telescope, how do the mirrors align to look at that? Is technically forensics. It's the practice of essentially collecting data So that's what the course was.
Now
so.
we're in my realm. Okay, data. I'm a bit of a data philiac, so use of data massively important to everything I do. But then I was a trained marketeer, so I kind of always at heart a designer, but I got trained as a marketeer, so data became a massively important factor. So that's it. In terms of your kind of start in this space, obviously you've mentioned your involvement with thinking about facilitating creativity and all of those aspects. What got you started down this road?
Main thing for me, so I was studying my master's at that point, and I was doing sound for the moving image. It's actually a teacher on that program now, so they invited me back or whatever. But part of that, we were learning a kind of audio for games course, and something which was raised up was modding is quite a good thing to get into. Wasn't the focus of the lesson, but it was something which was raised. And one of my classmates had been doing things for Lordbound, which is a mod for Skyrim, and getting involved with that. That just got me involved with it because there wasn't that much areas which had like a reduced barrier to entry for doing any type of music or sound design for games. You either have to make an environment with primitive objects and walk around a boring world space with interesting music, or it's better to start with a game that's a pre-established franchise, and then that's a way of being able to be creative in that space. So for a lot of people learning about audio design, actually going down the modding route is quite a good way to do that. But everything kind of before that, I was kind of fine artist, so I studied fine art painting is what I done. I done a lot of sound art as well and music, so I played in jazz bands and toured about and busked and such, and then went to do sound art and making sound design.
But the thing in my head about the sound design in a game, presumably there's a lot of like positional, directional kind of components, which makes that a different form than maybe more traditional music. Is that fair?
Yeah, definitely.
An audio guy.
Yeah, no, the main thing is the non-linearities. So any type of like linear media, everything is super well made to the point where, hyper-real sound design, everything knits together. Because if you think about all these audio clips together, they're maybe only getting reproduced through two speakers, your left and right. That crams all the information of everything to do with the spatial information, the way that everything slots together, the sonic profile of the world. Whereas anything within games, you have no control on how that player's going to interact with that world. And that can be spatialization, having 20 explosions going off, and then everything clips and everything. So there is a lot of actual management and how sounds could play together. So there's actually a lot of parallels with the world of like generative music, non-linear music methods, things like tidal cycles, max MSP, these kind of things for making music that kind of generates itself, kind of pre-generative AI. That's how you would kind of structure kind of things, and that same type of like methodology carries over quite naturally to video games. The difference is making a generative music composition exists in and of itself, but a video game needs art, needs interaction, needs code, needs these other foundational blocks before audio is even thought about. So it's quite a difficult thing to get involved with.
I feel your pain, because not being that audio guy at all, it's the last thing I think of, and I know it's a fault.
No,
the first. I know it's my problem. I know it's my fault. The thing in my head though is I did actually at least learn the importance of it by watching Thresh, the guy who beat Carmack at Quake 2, because we had a Quake tournament called Quakeadelica in 1998, my first ever event in the games industry, and watching Thresh beat the UK, just at that point crowned champion of the UK in the Ministry of Sound, was incredible because he did it through audio. He did it. He beat the UK guy like something like 57 to -1.
Yep. The sound cues, because of the rhythms, everything, the space between everything is really important.
Well, he knew where the pickups were because the audio effect for the pickups, he knew where all that was, so he knew where he needed to go next. And that precision of combining spatial awareness, effectiveness in terms of your gameplay, and the ability to comprehend the audio position, unbelievable.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen anything like that in terms of gameplay. But that's what it is. So great to understand a bit about your backgrounds and your specialities. So, we're going to have to talk about it. You make a decision. We've already talked about New Vegas. You're going to make a Fallout experience in a city that is underappreciated by certain US people, Fallout London. Where did that start, and why were you so crazy to even try doing that?
That started a very 2018 is when it first kicked off. There was there was some, officially we say 2019 because we had a massive project reset, to the point where the original thing is nowhere to be seen anymore. But that's when the first recruitment calls went out, and the original team was very much just dead set London, Fallout.
Yeah.
Let's roll with it. And then after that, about a year in, it was decided that things weren't working out there. There was some technical issues, and the whole thing was scrapped. Started from fresh under new leadership, and it then budded into this humongous project that it now is. Of course, the biggest technical achievement, I think, is actually creating London accurately, to the point where people can navigate the Fallout London map as if it were the real world. Of course, it's not perfect for obvious reasons. Game crunch is the biggest thing. I think it's something like one third. We call it 1/3 game crunch. So imagine you've got London, you crunch it down to 1/3 its size. That's basically Fallout London's world space. Right. Because otherwise you're walking down 50 roads. But the actual yes, right.
I might like that, but then
you might like that.
I'm ridiculous person who I've got 300 years of London heritage in me, so I would definitely love that moment. But this is because I remember this is not a trivial challenge. I mean, so I worked on PlayStation Home. That was the virtual world. Now the team that did PlayStation Home are the team that did the Getaway.
Yep.
So I was surrounded by people who literally took London and made a kind of crime game in that space on a PlayStation. So it's not the first. I think that's the first time I saw London done that way.
Yeah.
But later on, I've seen other cities because I was at Nvidia for a while. There was a whole bunch of fun stuff that was done to make 3D cities back in the day. So we've seen people rendering, real cities and applying them to games. What were the specific challenges you faced? Because this isn't the first time it's done. Did you learn it from scratch? Did you take any lessons from other experiences?
I think for the most part, I'm speaking for the level design team here, so excuse me on that, guys, if I get anything wrong. But they really focused on. There was decisions early on about what boroughs should be and how far should the map span. Things got cut, things got added. But of course, the biggest aid they had there was Google Maps. If you needed to make a street, you crack on with Google Maps. You have a full 3D view, 360 view. You know what you're making, basically.
Yeah.
The greatest challenges I think that we faced with actually recreating a lot of it was, in my opinion, a huge challenge was the assets. Yeah. Having to rebuild the London Eye, Parliament, Tower of London, Tower Bridge. These are huge. Yeah. Just asking, everyone's working on a volunteer basis.
Yeah.
Oh, hi, you need to make Tower Bridge. That
it's
most
fine.
3D art. Exactly. Most people are probably going to go because it's huge. It's a humongous architectural.
But it's not just creating things like Tower Bridge or Nelson's Column. It's that people are going to want to do things in that space.
Yeah.
And to my mind, you've got a bunch of volunteers. I mean, how many people are we talking actually involved in the process?
About 80 or so?
80.
Was it?
That's a full-size team.
Altogether?
It was more like 100. I think it was ended up in the realm of 120 to 140.
Well, it
bear in
depends on,
mind,
how many for that. Yeah, I mean, it was a lot of people
it's
throughout, 5 years?
yeah, but bear in mind there was a point when we had about 100 voice actors on board.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Wow.
don't get me wrong, not undercutting what they do. What they do is absolutely amazing.
Yeah,
But in terms of the core developers, it was always fluctuating from about 25 to 40 people. People coming, people going. You know, they're modders. They have lives to live as well. People might turn up and just do a little bit of level design and then move on.
Yeah.
Some people might stay the whole road. Who knows?
Some people got jobs in the industry as well. It was like a very powerful portfolio piece for them, so they were able to progress, which was another thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
No, I mean, the thing in my head is, I get the wider team 120, but the 20, even that is a solid, scale of team. That requires a level of production management, allocation, design, process, support, quality control. This is most mods, in my understanding, don't have that level of complexity. Is that fair?
In some sense, they do and don't. So most of the other projects that we've seen for Fallout and Skyrim, they do have a structure.
Yeah.
And I think structure is probably the most important thing
Yeah.
that worked very well for us. So we had the project manager, we then had the heads of department who, Dansky, for example, here is master in audio.
Yeah, clearly.
Clearly.
Yeah.
It makes sense for him to run the audio department. So anything
100%.
to do with audio follows his lead.
But he's working out all the meetings. He's doing the admin.
Yeah.
For that, I was not for Fallout London specifically.
fair enough.
My head would have melted for that. I think
that's what I was thinking.
The people we've got here just now, that's more than enough for me just now.
Yeah, I bet. But I mean, so obviously, you've got this sort of 7-year-ish period, obviously primarily the 5-year period of core development, I'm assuming. My expectation is that there are different stages, planning, pre-production kind of models. Are you following a more traditional game design methodology here, or are you, well, actually, don't let me try and ask questions that are going to spiral. How did you think about how to structure this process?
It's a bit of a yes and no, I'd say, to it being traditional.
Yeah.
I mean, it's definitely a lot more iterative. So there's parts which are made, then revised, gutted out, thought about, expanded. Small places were made to test out things working as well. So like a lot of like the first level, certain quest lines, learning from that. So gladfully, in terms of like the organization of stuff, it was like really strict maybe for the voice actors, and the way that we got a little chunk of things working as a proof of concept to ourselves to figure out what could be a good way working moving forward with stuff. So we had like a little team of, voice actors, and pretty much everybody strung together to make something as polished as possible. And it says, right, what have we learned and what was terrible about this? And then that kind of branched out to making the kind of proper production for a lot of stuff. It depends a lot on the department, but I would say that's probably key to everything in terms of like the writing and implementation, voice acting, which is kind of like one of the main kind of things when it comes to these role-playing games.
No, totally. I mean, I know I do a audio actual play with a bunch of people who happen to be audio, voice actors and things like that. And it's, I think it's very easy for me to underestimate the kind of skill involved in getting across various kinds of performance in these spaces, particularly because you've got a characterization, you've got moments, and like you said, Dansky, it's non-linear. So, I mean, within that part of it, I'm assuming that you've got somebody looking after the scripting, the barks, the documentation of the audio assets. I mean, is that yourself?
So that wasn't me. A lot of that was Callum. Gladfully, with stuff to do with, the creation kit, you can unpack things to figure out how things worked in that environment, and you are. So it's more of a case of not creating from scratch, but more you're seeing what is there, what is appropriate for Fallout London, what is not appropriate. And that's not just the lines in and of itself. It's like, how can the story branch out in a different way from the base game? You know, so you're working with difference rather than you're working from the ground up. So you're taking, do we need these combat bark? This kind of branch?
Yeah.
No, we don't. Scrap that. But we maybe need something new. What is similar to that? Or this line of script would work if we change those parameters and so. So it's more like that, which is not how usual game development works, but in terms of learning and rebuilding, everything is valid.
Yeah, I like
it's
this.
very
Yeah,
very different on the 3D side, because of course we don't just have a tutorial which tells us how to use the proprietary software that's required. We had to figure that out from the ground up. It took a very long time,
which is kind of frustrating if you think. I mean, we'll get into the company at some point, but I mean, the view I have is that given that those games have become so preeminently focused around modding, I assume naively that there's a lot of great tools that make that easy. I presume that's absolutely not the case.
The creation kit itself, the game engine, on its own is, yes, I would say it does provide that kind of experience where you can kind of pick it up and go. But if you want to start creating art for it, that's where it, it's same for Dansky with the audio side. If you want to actually start mastering the audio and actually implementing it in a manner where it's consistent, very professional, you have to figure out that process on your own. That is where the challenge comes. You do see some companies tackling this now. So you do see this from, I believe it's CDPR with The Witcher. They started to release more, like, here's the rigging tools. Huh? So you can make your own animations. Do you know what I mean? But as a modder, you're sitting there like, what? Because that is unheard of. But it's amazing.
This is an ongoing challenge. I mean, I as somebody who's basically just been in the industry for so long, but I've worked on PC, mobile, and console across the piece, but always in a commercial role. I never get my hands dirty. But it always struck me that there's a tension, and to give best out of their kind of like their due, there is always a tension between how much of the toolkit you want to let available. Partly because you've got IP rights to question, but often it's also about documentation, which is incredibly costly and difficult. To do it right, to do it well, to do it quality.
I'd say also the software licenses is a big part of that.
Exactly. And that's at the end of the day, they don't always have the choice to do that because they're not always. I mean, let's face it, how many game teams are using components across the board? The F mods of this world, there's Havocs, there's so many different tools out there that handle different aspects of audio interactions. You just have to look at the Unity asset store. I spent like 5.5 years working at Unity. It's like, this number of tools. I mean, I think somebody was saying at one point, mobile games were using an average of 26 different off-the-shelf tools.
Wow.
And imagine trying to make them work together. Because, mostly, they should work, but, you never know where the weirdness happens. Anyway, so back to this kind of plot. So, with audio sounds like there's the delta difference is really, actually worked out quite handily. It allowed you to understand the space in which you had to work and the differences, the new things that you had to add. But John, you're kind of giving me the impression that the art side is not that at all. Quite the opposite. It's like hurdle after hurdle after hurdle.
It is within the community. So if you know who to go to and you know what to look for, the community, for example, for Fallout 4 modding, Skyrim modding, they do often provide the tools themselves. So a specific example, animation. It's really tricky to recreate something called the cat rig, which allows you to animate the character however you want. But someone was lovely enough to just upload their recreation of it, which works perfectly. So anyone can go make their animations. Exactly. There are sides to it where things are kind of like hard coded. We'd often just refer to that's hard coded, not possible.
Yeah.
Where it reaches a certain level of difficulty, where it starts reaching the point of this is not what this is going to take 3 years for us to document it, figure it out, and then use it. But yeah, it really depends what you want to do. If it's the 3D side, specifically with what we do, I'm giving you specific examples because otherwise I'm just blurting out random stuff at you. It's once you know the process, once you've figured it out, you can pretty much just reverse engineer most of Bethesda's art. You know, you export the scene and it looks identical to how Bethesda done it. You know you've done it right, and it will work. And it's one of them cases of figuring out that process, figuring out a pipeline that just works.
Yeah, it's always about the pipeline at the end of the day, because if you don't have a routine, a pathway to make that efficient, it's going to drive you nuts.
Yes, yeah.
But then that's game development anyway, isn't it? So
I will just add to that. It's not completely like you need to figure it out for yourself. Bethesda themselves, when you install the creation kit, they provide you with the plugins for 3ds Max.
Yeah.
Which is quite interesting because, you know, it's a pricey piece of software, but then they at least give you the plugins that they use in-house to some extent stripped down.
But also a number of art tools will export to 3ds Max as a default option. So
in some sense, yeah.
In some sense, yeah. I mean, I know it's not perfect, but at least there is a sense of where. There was always Max versus Maya back in the day. I think we went Max with Home, or was it Maya? I can't remember. But most of the art programs I saw people using could at least output to both, to a lesser or greater extent. So, I mean, we're talking about, a lot of the work, obviously, with a mod like this is going to come in the assets, whether it's audio or 3D, or even in terms of narrative, locational items, the value of things, all those kind of pieces that drive the gameplay story parts onwards. What were the things that you didn't expect to have to pick up beyond those?
I know what I want to say.
There's quite a lot. I mean, you can go first. I'm
going to
think about that because I mean, that's the thing with working on this. There's loads of things like that come up. Sometimes it's things completely out of your control. Sometimes it's things going, my God, why didn't we think of that? Like, quick recoup. We need an emergency. Like, how are we going to fix this?
Yeah.
Things to do with. I'll let Sonny say it because I'm curious which one he would pick up on first.
Yeah. Probably the top one would just be what I ended up probably the strongest credit being the build master. I never expected I'd have to end up doing version control. I ended up creating a system for us, which was a hybrid between Git LFS and Perforce. So,
what?
Yes, yes. So Perforce, exactly. But the issue we face, Perforce is somewhat implemented into the creation kit for scripting. It allows it to just automatically recompile scripts with the correct reference IDs that you require, so you don't have to go through after. Yeah. And then Git was specifically just, this is how we share files. So it's a bit of a hybrid.
So that
I never expected that.
I'm not technical. I have PTSD of using Perforce and Jira from my time at Sony. I'm having to do Jira stuff now, but no. But concept guy, not doer. But it sounds like a living nightmare, because I know how temperamental it can be when you're using a kind of plain vanilla Unity kind of delivery or an Epic kind of delivery. There's so many areas where this stuff can fall down.
Yep.
How the hell did you stay sane?
I didn't.
There was many late nights. There was so many things that happened. There's a thing called like Xedit and everything where you can edit the plugin files and before they get merged in. And most of the time, Sonny Jordan was on that all the time going through because there was always so many conflicts all over. Even just accidental. What was it you found out the other day? If you open something, it created an edit and things like that as well.
Yeah. So if you open a quest, like you just open a quest in the creation kit just to look at it, it will check it out. The version control built into the Seeker would just go, yeah, it's checked out. So someone else edits that quest, and then you merge the person's file who just looked at it after all their edits are gone.
And bear in mind, if you need to
like,
check something in terms of dialogue, you can't check the dialogue unless you open a quest. So you need to like check through these things and say, am I allowed to check something just to have a look? It's like, no, I've touched that. It's like, right, I'm going to have to close the CK, reopen it, not create a plugin file, which takes a long time. It takes like about 5 minutes to load the ESM, check the line and go, okay, it's called this ID. Close it again, reopen it, load your plugin file to make sure that you're not creating conflicts. It's a nightmare.
Wow.
I do remember one day I opened up the Git, and anyone who's used Git desktop, you'll know the little down arrow when a little puller's ready. And I opened it up and I had 24 down arrows, and I sat there like, today is the day.
When was
like as
that?
in there was this was very close to version, I think 1.14. It was around that era. And I literally, you have to imagine I have like user 1, user 2, user 3, and they all had arrows on them, every single one. And I was sitting there like, oh, this is it. But
and you've still got hair.
Yes. I had a lot more a few years ago. I had a lot more.
That was PlayStation only did that. No, stop joking. But honestly, I mean, I mean, okay, I know I've got ADHD. I know I would struggle with that anyway, but that sounds like exponential struggles.
One of my favourite times was when we were really late like this is, when I say late, this can be me and Sonny and sometimes Callum or Prill or whoever, and we're sitting late on just keeping Sonny sane or company, and he merges all of these files in and is sporadically testing things, and then tests it again and finds out that some reference limit's been hit. So actually a big portion of the world space is flat. And when Sonny shared the screen and went, who's flattened London? What is going on? It's like, why is it all flat? And walking through, and then parts were popping in. So all of these cells had hit some limit somewhere and started deleting it from the top up somewhere. I don't know where.
Imagine spending about 6 hours merging everyone's work.
You had to backtrack as well to find out whose it was, because you didn't test that cell.
It was like three files. I said, I'm really close to the end. I've already been doing this for about 2.5 hours, or however many hours it was. And I just went, okay, let's just merge them. It'll be absolutely fine. It'll be fine. Got to the end, loaded it up as a test, and I went, what is that? And that became like the famous word of if someone did an oopsie, what is that?
If someone did an oopsie,
they did an oopsie.
We were talking, saying, why are you loaded into the test level? It was like, no, mate, no. I'm in London. This is the game. I went, what's going on?
I went, this is the world space. There's nothing here.
The patience. I mean, I get it. The bottom line is you've got all of these people who have given their time because of passion, and you can't be mad at them, but you can be actually mad.
This is what I always said to anyone, is if I was stressing out, because sometimes, I do admit, sometimes I got a bit stressed out because it was like, why on earth did you do this? But like, it was at the end of every time I got stressed, it was, the reason I'm upset is because I don't want you to lose work. I don't want you to lose your hard work that you've not been paid for. You're doing this voluntarily. It's a passion of yours. And the worst thing for me is to turn around to someone and go, I can't merge your file. Because of a fundamental error, because of a merge conflict, whatever it is. Every time there was any issue, it was my top priority that is going in one way or another. I don't care how it's done, it's getting in.
Yeah.
Whether I have to sit there and Xedit, manually doing it by hand, ensuring that conflict is gone, I don't care. Your work is getting in. And that's part of the reason I would always stress so much, because I'm like, you're not doing this for me to turn around and say I can't merge it because I'm incapable of fixing whatever the issue might be. That's not fair. Do you know, getting a bit serious?
But you've also got to QA
yes.
it. You've also got to make sure it fits with the expected delivery. You know, not just that it works, but that it actually solves the thing that it was supposed to do, and it does it well enough so that when a player plays it, it makes sense. I mean, there's a massive, I mean, it's hard enough. It sounds like it's hard enough to get it in, let alone make sure it's actually doing the job. Is that right?
In some sense, the merge itself isn't difficult.
Yeah.
Getting 20 people to work together and not create merge conflicts is difficult.
Yes.
The top example I have of this is Navmesh. Of course, I'm sure most people know what Navmesh is. And the way that Navmesh works in the CK, or specifically for Fallout 4, is really wacky. It uses a vanilla record, so something that is held within the base game that we then have to create an override for. And no matter what you do, you cannot change that base record. You just have to keep funneling more and more information into a single record. So imagine what happens when 15 people edit one record.
Oh my goodness me.
It gets messy. The amount of times people's nav meshing got scuffed in one way or another. It did reach a point towards the end, probably like 5 versions before we released, where I said one person nav mesh. No more errors, because it's something we cannot control. It is the creation kit, the fundamental way it combines this information.
But presumably that's why you're hitting limits as well, if you've got a single point of failure, effectively.
In some sense, for us, the reference limits, just to describe this to people, I can't remember the number. There's a crazy high number. It's in the millions. That the creation kit itself can load before you cannot load it any further.
Right.
So if you load every DLC and Fallout 4, creation kit just hangs. It doesn't do anything. So you often have to. There is a community fix for that, where people have unlocked that limit. But for us, we didn't want to use certain versions of the creation kit. We had a version we were very happy with, and that did not have that reference limit unlocked. But what we did, and this is the funny workaround, we went into the Fallout 4 base game and deleted everything. Everything. The whole Commonwealth, every interior cell. There was 2. The classic. Do you know about the coconut image? What was it? There's the Team Fortress. I think it was Team Fortress. There was a certain texture in the game. If you change that texture, the whole game would break. There was 2 cells 2 levels you cannot edit, and if we edited them, goodbye. They were the only 2 things, and the quests and all the 3D models and bits like that were left. We stripped the entire thing so that we could load Fallout London and keep editing it and increasing our reference limit.
But this is the trick, isn't it? I mean, I know some folks rebuilt PlayStation Home from binaries. There was no yes, literally.
My lord!
Destination Home exists. I think it's on Steam. I can't remember exactly. But anyway, wherever it is, I can't remember where it is. It's the first time that Sony hasn't made a cease and desist. But the teams behind it, I managed to talk to some of the devs on Discord a couple of years ago during COVID, and I am amazed that Sony didn't stop it. But it's incredible the job they did. They literally from binaries on PlayStations, they've made a PC game. That's an incredible experience. Now, that doesn't sound as scary as what you're describing to me.
That probably was scary, I'll be honest. Doing it from binaries is a bit spicy.
That's a different skill set. But to my mind, the ability to the balance, the precarious nature of having to balance all of the devs delivering things in that constrained environment when you're having to do this. Anyway, build. So Dansky, while Sonny's off not pulling his hair out, but pretty much close to it. You mentioned there were other things that you found like surprising that you had to deal with.
There's so many kind of little annoying things to do with.
Yeah.
So Sonny will know a lot more about this, the way that it works, but there's something in quest lines where if something isn't assigned to a character or the player, it's assigned to everybody. And unfortunately, a few of these lines were very difficult to track down because we couldn't find them because they were so generic. And there was multiple times of just going through loads of quests, everything crashing, saying we have no idea why this is happening. There was one point where everybody just kept saying, huh, all the time. And it was driving us mental. There was another time where Prill, who done a lot of the level design as well, put a lot of placeholder things. So he was, in order to prevent conflict, I'd requested if he could put sound markers, and I made a dummy one essentially, so that I can edit that because it doesn't edit the cell. So that was our way of getting around that because he has to do another pass. I says, roughly do this. I'll be able to go through and then change which ones are leaves, which ones are grass and all this. He chose the wrong one and they were all cows mooing. So the whole game for like a whole week was just cows mooing everywhere, and it was driving.
This is why I'm laughing.
Release the bill. I want the cow version.
It's why at the moment he said this.
And it was driving everybody mental. Like, Bern, at this point, there was a lot of stressed people working on this. Yeah. So to have, like, the moo build come out, you know, for everybody to work on for a week, and it was distorting, it was coming from everywhere. You know, you were in combat and just cows were mooing. You couldn't test anything. It was pointless.
This is why I was cracking up, because I knew exactly where it was going. I remember one day I went, was that a cow?
And it was really good.
But I mean, honestly, forget big heads. I want cow noises from now on.
But it's a shortcoming in the way that things work with. I mean, it's almost like in Unity where you've got, like, you know, like child object and parent objects and all this kind of way of stacking everything. You duplicate things or prefabs or whatever and putting stuff around. With the creation kit, everything's nested in such an odd way where it's all in different categories and you have to open other ones, and the file names become unwieldy so that they can reference, so that you can trace things back, because even the you know, like find reference in scene is not reliable, or find reference within everywhere else. So it means that there's a lot of cock-ups that happen with that, with sounds where I thought it was that sound, but it actually wasn't. And it creates this just cascading thing, which is very simple and an easy mistake to do. But like the cow thing just was an honest mistake, but then nobody checked it because it was all the placeholders are there, on you go. And then it was just a cacophony of cows everywhere.
You sent me on a bit of a kind of like a flashback because when I was a Unity evangelist, the number one feature that everybody wanted, and I was asked on a daily basis, was when are we getting nested prefabs, which I think they're solved now, but
yeah.
So I can't remember if they have or not. But it's like I was literally like beaten over the head over those kind of things. But this whole idea of I mean. Anyway, sorry, Sonny, you were about to say,
sorry. Dansky just got me thinking there about probably one of the best things about the creation kit, in terms of, you know, so far we've made it sound like the version control was a nightmare, but I'd say one of the most powerful parts of it was a nightmare, but one of the most powerful parts of the toolkit is how well, like, you can have 15 people editing the same level, and it can work.
Yeah,
and I find that's shocking. Like, just take Unreal Engine or Unity, for example. You typically have a map file, but you can't have 15 people edit the same map file because the final edit will be that edit, and that is really quite the most powerful thing about the engine, and I do really always enjoy that.
Well, there were tools being developed when I was there in Unity to allow multiple collaborative work on the same assets. But I
Yeah.
think you're right. There was some sort of I haven't touched it for a long time, so I don't know. Not technical person, but what I think you're describing to me is it sounds like you've had every possible problem that you could expect to have in a modding experience. Is that fair?
I would say we had to hit barriers.
Yeah.
Like we every time you make this kind of stride forward, oh, we've got the level design down, we've got a process, we know how that works. We'd then hit the next thing, and it's all right. We need to figure this out. Let's go on to Google. Has anyone else figured it out? No. We're the first ones at this stage where we have a project of this scale, where we need to figure out ourselves how we move forward. And often what we found, you figure that thing out, it's the next thing. You figure that out, it's the next thing. And I will say it did eventually reach a point. I think that was once Dansky and Callum really started to get the audio, all the voice acting, everything started to really come together.
Yeah.
And that's when I thought I saw the light, right? I was like, there is no more of these invisible walls that we now need to, just for example, Perforce. For me to get Perforce working with the creation kit, it took me something like 3 weeks of just non-stop attempting different things, trying different versions, because I hit an error and I was like, was it this version that I got wrong? Turns out you need like 2010 Microsoft Word for one of the DLLs, and anyway, we're not. Do you know what I mean? But it's that kind of wall. You hit this wall, you get past that wall, and then you get, yes, there's the light, another wall. But I think that comes part and parcel with the fact that we were kind of pioneering what we were doing. In my opinion, anyway, like we were the first people to really get there, or with Fallout 4 specifically. Right, I'm sure if we were doing this on Skyrim or Morrowind or whatever version, Oblivion, there's already pre-existing communities which have reached that point of we have a massive project. That's the tick box you need, right? That's the button. But for us, we were figuring that out in the dark, basically.
Scale of the mod that you were building, I think that's the key thing that I'm picking up from what you guys are saying. So obviously, you get through those processes. You get to that point where you've got something that's working. It's looking good, and of course, Bethesda are fantastic, and they give you the green light, and they really. Oh wait, hang on a minute. My observation is you had the rug pulled from you just at the point you're about to go out. Is that fair, or am I being mean?
We don't want to talk about that.
Fair enough. But,
I mean, we can.
No, you don't feel like you have to, because I'm going to speak for me. For me, I felt like there was a massive opportunity for that team, who you could argue was, the wider company. Starfield hadn't been the greatest moment of triumph. There is a group of people who are showing the passion and love and dedication to deliver something of such quality that you guys have delivered. I personally would have said that's something to be embraced, and my observation of that wasn't the case. But the GOG guys seem to me to have really had your back.
Yes.
Is that
fair?
Fair?
They completely saved everything, really, and they've constantly just been really supportive, even from back then. Sonny was the main contact with GOG, but really they, came in and said, we'll just host it, why not? And just amazing people, really.
I'm allowed to say a little bit on that. Because of their whole DRM free, that's their model. Yeah. They allow you to roll back to any version of Fallout available, which really, I think, what you aren't wrong. I have to say, we came on one day to our Discord server. We all sat in a chat. I knew the update was coming because I saw it on the Steam DB. You can see anything on Steam DB. If there's beta builds, anything like that, you can see the updates. You can't, of course, see the update itself, but you know what I mean. No. You can know it's coming, but the fact that we didn't get any warning was very frustrating. You are right, that did rug gone. But also, I think the most frustrating thing is if GOG, who can achieve this, right, that you have a beta branch of the game, you just switch to it. Job done.
Job done.
Why not do that for Fallout 4? What? Cyberpunk does it? Baldur's Gate? Oh, what? You've got 200 Baldur's Gate mods installed, and Steam is about to roll out an update. Switch beta channel done.
Yeah.
Fallout 4. Please. Please, because no one has to downgrade their game to play our mod. We did want to push for the next gen update once it had released. The first 2 weeks after that had happened, and we announced our delay, I sat down for about 2 weeks with Callum, and I tried to get it working. I did everything in my power to get it working, and then that's when I realized we were experiencing an issue that was not in our control.
Yeah.
Which was then later documented. There was an issue of real-time face generation causing massive frame drops. And it's still not fixed to this day.
Scuppered. Yeah.
We were scuppered. Yep. 2 days after, was it 2 days before or after our release date?
It would have been before.
I think
it was before.
Yeah.
2 days before.
I mean, for me, as somebody who's observing this as a Fallout fan, I can't remember when I first saw your trailer, but I went, I want this immediately. Why is this not a part of the official thing? Well, not necessarily official, but why is not being embraced? And then when I saw that you got hit by that process, I felt that pain. But I think my impression is that didn't entirely go against you. It feels to me like there was a massive community reaction to that, which was very supportive of you. Is that accurate, or is it just my kind of impression?
It was a mixture of both, I would say. There was people who were, upset, understandably. I mean, it was pretty difficult. It is quite a strange thing to work on something with no back catalogue of stuff to prove or to show, to say we are, people that you can trust with this and everything. And that made it quite difficult, I'd say, for quite a number of people on the team. I don't want to, ignore that. Some people were kind of struggling with that. Says, is this going to be great or is this going to be a flop? Because it was tunnel vision for a lot of it. And with the delay and everything, it was also another thing that for some people was just another, bad bit of news and everything. And yeah, I mean, for me, it was totally fine. For a lot of the heads of department, it was okay as well. Because Sonny did kind of predict a lot of it. I will admit, there was actually a part of me that just didn't believe it. I went, no, it'll be fine. It'll be totally okay. And it was just me being stupid and trying to be optimistic, but it didn't really work, really. But overall, people are really supportive after like the release and everything. The overwhelming kind of support from everybody is really quite amazing. That happens quite a lot just from even going outside and sometimes having our hoodies on. Some people recognize us. People have came up and said that they love the music that I've made for it, which is bizarre. Just bizarre things about that.
Yeah.
So there is a really good amount of support.
I get you. Yeah. No, but I get the kind of. I don't like the word imposter syndrome for it, but it's because you made that stuff. You're not pretending anything, but there is something about a surprise I have witnessed where people talk to me about PlayStation Home and what it meant to them, and it's like that's not me. It's a whole team of people that did that thing, but I know that they're trying to convey something that mattered to them, and I suspect I think it's delightful that the response you've got that shows that the work and the craft and the effort and the 5 years of struggle, I would argue, mattered to people. I think that's amazing. I'm glad you've had that response. So the thing in my head now is that you've done this, you've got it out there, And in the end, it has been pretty sort of successful in terms of volume of take up, in my view. And I'd love to know, did it meet your expectations? Did the success of the kind of mod so far, I think it's still, still time, but for success so far, do you feel like that effort, does the team feel satisfied that you did what was needed and were effective at it?
100%.
I would definitely say so. People have it on their portfolios. I feel really happy with it. I think maybe for me particularly, the kind of positive response for things to do with the music, because I mean, some of them were composed in like a few hours, some of them spent a few days doing them, and it's kind of validating to know that creative span of time is appreciated. I think sometimes if you are a creative person, some people's probably favourite 3D assets were maybe ones that suddenly made in like 5 minutes or something. Not, but you know what I mean? But this kind of creative collective making something and being a part of that is really special for everybody.
Yeah, totally.
For me, it was the moving trains, the mission of the moving trains. That was a massive undertaking. But once it had gone out, once we made it public, people were like, "What? You did
Things
that?
Moving in Fallout?
It's moving? Yeah. Like, yeah." So
that's nice. So, I mean, I think my view is that you've made a magnificent achievement. It's fantastic, and I think, I won't say unprecedented in the kind of modding community, but of the at the peak of the kind of modding community that I've personally seen, and I think it's an absolute triumph. So what does that mean now with Team Folon moving forward? What does that mean for you as a team, and what are you doing, having got that under your belt, with that in your portfolio? What does that mean to you as a group?
You can say first, Sonny, or if you want, I can.
Yeah, sorry. I think in terms of what it means for us, I think the most shocking thing for us was when we went to Gamescom last year, and people were just so interested in our story. I know this may not completely relate to your question, but I think for me that was mind blowing. Like, people were like, "You guys are like amazing." We're sitting there like, we're just a bunch of scruffy modders who made something. But yeah, I'll let Dansky answer that more directly, I think.
Yeah, so a lot of the next steps. So I think the framework of things, I feel quite passionately, really personally, about modding communities as a whole. I don't know the full history of it, but in terms of learning a framework of how a team can function together, how people can maybe philosophically engage with games at a deeper level, creating something. I mean, there's like things like dreams and things like that, that people make games, and these kind of like communities making stuff actually does something creatively, and I think everybody feels that within the team, and we want to try and create something that's still like that and has that excitement moving forward, making stuff. So, we are going to be working on future things. We have a team. We have people who, are the heads of department for everything. And I think for like the long term of everything for us is, creating a business moving forward for that is going to be challenging. You want people around you that you love. And with that, you do want to create something that's sustainable, does include people around you, and has something like that. I think seeing everything with like the world of business through the lens of what was once a volunteer project is quite a challenging thing to then flip over to that. Not in terms of like, in terms of money or development or whatever like that. It's more like the actual kind of flip mindset of things. Yeah. And I think certainly for people who were really passionate from the beginning of that, carrying that forward into creating a business, I think is actually a massive strength, I would say, overall. Yeah. Because it's...
I totally agree.
Carrying that and keeping that with people around you close, things don't always have to be done by the books kind of thing. And the way that, something was created, a piece of art was made by deconstructing, mucking something up, playing about with blocks, and something was made. And I think that kind of philosophy of video games is really important to kind of take forward with stuff. So I don't know if that answers your question or if you have further points
It does.
on
That's beautifully put. I think one of the things I've learned, and when we do kind of like training to help people understand how to set up game teams, one of the things I always talk about is when you're creating a company, you're creating a group of people who are on a common endeavor. And at the end of the day, it's the measures by which success looks like that change, not the need to have that sense of commitment, passion, engagement. You've created and crafted something that was magical and important to you and important to its players. But the only difference to that and a commercial operation, in my view, is that your goal of what success looks like has now elevated to be able to make that sustainable.
Yeah. One of my favourite kind of quotes, I don't know if you're into Drexia at all. Kind of wonderful kind of techno music from Detroit.
No.
One of my favourite interviews from 10 years ago, I mean, a musician, nothing to do with game development, but it was something that was really eye-opening for me to hear, was somebody who, said that, there's all these experimental musicians, they're all curmudgeon, they're all kind of upset that they're not breaking through into the scene, all of that kind of stuff. Says, well, you're making experimental music. You need to be aware of who's into that, who enjoys that kind of stuff. Flip-wise, with people who are making commercial stuff that's getting played all over the world, and they're saying, oh, it's played everywhere, but I get no satisfaction from that because it doesn't resonate with people. I think particularly for something which comes from like a modding community, that resonates quite true, because you're working on something that's essentially a 10-year-old game, accepting that kind of fact and knowing that that's going to resonate with people because they've got a history with that. But then how does that translate into actually making games? Because you are thinking a lot more of the kind of sociological aspects of it all.
As the commercial guy in often in all of these cases, it's identifying and satisfying consumer needs.
Yep.
You've identified a need and you're trying to satisfy it in the best way you can. And I think where a lot of people get lost with the whole business of this stuff is that they forget that you don't get revenue unless you've satisfied an audience. It's just, that's games is the most complicated. We've just illustrated just how messy, complicated, hard it can be. And you were modding inside a relative, well, you get my drift, but a kind of framed experience.
Yeah.
For teams out there who are having to build their own tools, who are deciding that they're going to use an engine or not, or deciding what their server infrastructure is going to be like, and their narrative art style, the kind of core message. They've all got the same fundamental problems, which is identify an audience and engage them.
Yeah.
And I think that's fundamental to all of this. I mean, to sort of round us off as we're getting past the hour, but I think what I'd really love to understand is, I think it's clearly obvious from you guys that this was a worthwhile and a delightful, in the end, in hindsight, a delightful experience to have gone through and to be at the other side of. What would you warn people about who are starting down the modding journey, but also what would you recommend to them in order to make sure they get the best out of it?
Tricky question, because it's really hard to not be too, what do you want to say, utilitarian about it.
Yeah.
In my opinion, because we get messages all the time from people. Many people on our team get messages. How do I start a project of your scale? And it's really, sometimes it's kind of heart-wrenching to just be like, don't. Because we went through an awful lot. There was a lot of stress. There was a lot of sacrifices. Let's be honest, sacrifices.
Yes.
It became a full-time or part-time job on top of a part-time job, basically. And eventually, for some, it became a full-time thing where we were pulling 12 to 14, if not longer, hours. That was completely up to us, by the way. We weren't forced to do that before anyone gets the wrong idea. We were dedicated, which I do think is the good part of that. If you want to get into making a project of that scale as a mod, just be prepared for, if you want to go, I actually want to do this. I'm dead set on this. You need to kind of almost pack your bag and be ready that at some point you're going to have to maybe stop playing games, maybe give up a job, whatever it is.
Eat ramen for 6 months.
Eat ramen for 6 months, which is, I think, a sacrifice many people have to make. You look at a lot of startup companies, a lot of game startups. It's very similar, I think, very similar realm. But yeah, it's really hard to give people that answer. Don't do it. Go work in Unreal Engine or Unity, because you can monetize it. If you spent that 5 years, building something in Unreal Engine or Unity that people really, really want, you can start a company from that. You can start an entire career. You can, whereas for us, whilst we could do that, we're not allowed to directly monetize Fallout London. I know it's not about money. No. Don't get me wrong. For us, it is about passion. But at the end of the day, if we want to do it full time, we need to be able to pull in something, because how do people live? People have to live at the start, at the end of that, right?
Yeah.
That is the hardest thing that we often have to tell people. If someone wants to make a small little quest mod, knock yourself out. Absolutely go for it. Put your all in. But larger mods, we'd be willing to give you the stepping stones, but we can't promise.
Say for a lot of that is the same things as like building any kind of team. I'd say like a skills matrix to figure out like what people are good at, what people aren't good at, and then I'd think starting with big production or whatever, saying you need to make a large mod. That's an answer to a problem. Well, what's the problem? Like, what tools do you have for those things? Am I speaking your language?
My heart. You are absolutely speaking my language perfect. So, I think Sonny, you said it as well, and the thing about finding the scale of the project you can actually do, and part of the problem we often have is that people aren't honest about the level of risk they're willing to take.
Absolutely.
Yes. In this case, the risk is 100% because you're not getting any money out of that product.
Yeah.
But what you're building is something that you're passionate. You could argue the same mindset that makes people build crazy, massive 00 scale railway landscapes and models, physical models, is the same kind of logic. Namely, that is something that they love, and that is an art form that only they will get to enjoy. But your art form that you love is being enjoyed by, I think it's up to 1 million now. Is it?
More than 1 million.
More than 1 million. Yeah.
More than 1 million people. That's phenomenal. Obviously, I'd love somebody to come in and say, here's a large check. But that's obviously not always going to happen. But the point for me is that you've done something which is remarkable. I think you went in that with your eyes open. It sounds like you've learned a huge amount. And one of the things I think that people underestimate, and I'm not suggesting they go and do a game mod of your scale, but just shipping a game, the shipping part is the most important bit. We joke, almost every veteran like me will say 80% of the work is the last 2% of getting it out the door. And a lot of people will make games, design games, run games, but unless you can ship it, it doesn't matter. So if you're thinking of that mindset, for me, I think developers need to think about what can they do. What they shouldn't be trying to make themselves eat ramen for 6 months and blah blah blah. Yes. In my opinion, it's not healthy. There are better ways, and you can get similar benefits by building something smaller and shipping it. But my goodness, am I glad you guys put the effort in, because
you have
triumph.
You absolutely just hit the nail on the head on what I was saying there. So the biggest, I think, turning point for us, the biggest realization in the moment of, oh my, it's an epiphany, was the realization of, we're sitting there, this is our hobby, but we actually want to release it. Is it manageable as a hobby? Yeah. We want to make something, we have a very clear goal. at what point there's like a switch. That's what happened for a lot of people. There was a massive switch. Hobby to we're doing this full time, basically.
Yeah.
It wasn't forced on anyone. It was a very obvious change in like the emotions of people, that it went from we're just putting bricks together and having fun to let's actually do this, get it out because people want it. And that realization really came after our first trailer. I thought it was a couple of months after that when we realized this huge boon of people just coming in to the Discord. Funny story on that, we uploaded that expecting like 15,000 views, wake up the next morning to millions, and we're like, oh my God. That was the huge turning point, really. That flipped like a switch. Hobby, this is a thing.
I actually joined Fallout London knowing nothing about it. I just wanted experience to make games. And this was after the trailer, and I remember some of the team members were like, what do you mean you've not seen our trailer? I was like, I just want to make music for some stuff. Like, it's difficult to get experience composing for games. It's like,
that was me taking it personally, Dansky.
That was you. And saying, look, let me show you this trailer. And it was however many millions went, oh, this is quite a popular mod. I went, yeah, like, of course.
Damn right. Honestly, I
funny.
can't remember when I saw that trailer, but it was one of those things where it was like, take my money now. But of course, you're not taking my money because you can't.
Yeah.
Anyway, guys, it's been fabulous talking to you. And honestly, genuinely, I'm delighted that you managed to get it out. It is. I do not underestimate that. I mean, I've been working in the games industry for 30 years. I know how painful it is to make a normal game, but to go through the constraints you've been through, to be able to do that in a professional way and to release it to such acclaim is an absolute triumph. And I hope you kind of can hold on to that, even though we have been in a very complicated time in the games industry. And I'm sure that the next thing you do will be absolutely incredible. So I can't wait to see what you do next.
Thank you.
I do hope we can inspire people with that. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thank you very much. And so this has been your Game Dev Local, and we've been talking to the fabulous Sunny and Dansky, talking about the development of Fallout London. Hopefully you've got an insight, not just into the work that they did, but also what it takes to be able to make not just any mod, but mods at scale, and the complications and the questions and the difficulties, the challenges that you don't expect. And if you're going to make choices, making mods is a fantastic way to learn about the nuance of what it takes to make great games. But at the same time, it comes with its own challenges, it comes with its own restrictions, and you have to desire to make that mod so absolutely that you can push through to the end, because so many people will fall at the final post and not get it released. But it's that release that changes your awareness of what happens in the game industry. That's something I've learned through, like I say, 30 years of doing this stuff, is getting it to market is amazingly important. But the irony is, where I sit, that's the start. Getting it released is the start. Maintaining, supporting, managing, and continuing to develop is what most games now have to do. But then, that's why we have modding communities. That's why I have, communities who love to make user-generated content, with experiences like Roblox, with experiences like, we mentioned Dreams earlier, Little Big Planet at the time. There are so many tools and techniques that have encouraged people who just like the idea of making games to see the difference between making and playing. And I still maintain that if you're going to be a game maker, that's a very different thing from just liking playing games. To my mind, you have to feel like you can only be a game maker, which is how I feel about my place in the industry. Guys, thanks very much. And again, if you enjoy this, please like, subscribe, share, come onto the Discord, talk about your experiences. Have you played Fallout London? And, if not, why not? Go do it. And equally, have you been involved in modding communities? Is that how you got your start? Let's talk about it. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.